The landscape of Zetland, the islands off the coast of Scotland, is a place of wind and salt where the weather doesn't just change, it commands. It is a rugged, isolated world, caught in a moment of profound transition. The old Norse traditions, with their ancient customs and deep-rooted social hierarchies, are starting to rub against the encroaching influence of the Scottish mainland. This is the world Walter Scott places us in at the beginning of The Pirate. Our story starts with the arrival of a man named Basil Mertoun. He is a scholar, a man of books and quiet study, and he has come to the ruined mansion of Jarlshof to find total isolation. But Basil is not a man of peace. He carries with him a volatile, almost terrifying temper, a berserker rage that seems out of place in his scholarly life. He is accompanied by his teenage son, Mordaunt. Mordaunt is the complete opposite of his father. He is charismatic, daring, and full of life. While his father wants to hide from the world, Mordaunt wants to be part of it. He quickly finds himself drawn into the social life of the islands, specifically into the household of Magnus Troil, a powerful and proud landowner who represents the old, traditional order of Zetland. Magnus has 2 daughters, and they represent 2 different paths for Mordaunt. There is Minna, the eldest, who is contemplative, spiritual, and seems to possess a deep connection to the natural world. Then there is Brenda, the younger sister, who is vivacious, social, and full of energy. As Mordaunt moves between these 2 sisters, he begins to navigate the complex social waters of the islands, but he is also navigating his own growing feelings. However, the arrival of the Mertoun family is only the beginning of the disruption. The peace of the islands is shaken by the arrival of Captain Clement Cleveland. He is a privateer, a man of the sea, who has survived a shipwreck and has been taken in by the community. Cleveland is incredibly charismatic and worldly. He has a way of walking into a room and becoming its center. He uses his charm to win over the social circles of the islands, and he quickly begins to displace Mordaunt. Where Mordaunt is earnest and spirited, Cleveland is polished and calculating. This creates a rift. As Cleveland moves closer to the heart of the community, he begins to draw the attention of Minna. But his presence is not welcomed by everyone. There is a sense of suspicion surrounding him, a feeling that this man from the outside doesn't quite fit the rhythm of Zetland. This tension is heightened by the presence of Norna of Fitful Head. Norna is a mysterious, almost otherworldly figure. She is a prophetess, a woman who seems to speak for the elements themselves. She warns Mordaunt that Cleveland is a serpent, a predatory force that has come to infiltrate the noble house of Troil. Her warnings aren't just social observations, they feel like prophecies of doom. As the story moves forward, the line between the real world and the supernatural begins to blur. We learn that Norna is not just a local eccentric. She is actually Ulla Troil, a woman who was once part of the Troil lineage but was transformed into an elemental spirit after a tragic and violent act of parricide. She exists on the edge of the human world, acting as a harbinger of fate for the families she once knew. While the supernatural elements deepen, the human drama reaches a breaking point. The rivalry between Mordaunt and Cleveland is no longer just about social standing or the affection of the Troil sisters, it becomes a clash of characters. Cleveland, seeing his influence over Minna slipping, reveals a side of himself that is far from the charming gentleman he portrays. He admits to Minna that his reputation for ferocity and his persona as a hardened pirate are calculated masks. He uses cruelty and fear to maintain command over his men and to navigate the world of men. But Minna, who seeks a spiritual and true connection, is disillusioned. She sees through the mask and rejects him, realizing that the man she thought she saw was merely a performance. The tension reaches a fever pitch during the White Fishery, the traditional whale hunt. This is a chaotic communal event where the physical danger of the sea meets the social pressures of the community. It is a moment of extreme vulnerability where the old ways of the islands are tested against the unpredictable forces of nature. In the climax of the book, all these threads, the romantic, the social, and the supernatural, collide. Mordaunt finds himself caught in a desperate position. He is torn between his duty to protect the Troil sisters and his own intense, complicated love for them. He is a young man trying to find his place in a world that is rapidly changing. Meanwhile, Cleveland remains a looming, predatory presence. He is a man who refuses to be displaced, determined to reclaim what he believes is his, regardless of the cost. The story concludes with a sense of profound transition. The conflict isn't just between individuals, but between eras. We see the collision of the old, ancestral customs of the Zetlanders and the shifting modern tides brought in by outsiders like Cleveland and the Scottish settlers. The ending leaves us with the characters at a crossroads. The old social order is being shaken, and the characters must face the consequences of their passions and their legacies. It is a story about the weight of honor, the fragility of reputation, and the ways in which the past, both personal and cultural, can never truly be escaped. When we look at the themes of the pirate, several layers of meaning emerge. One of the most striking is the tension between tradition and progress. The Zetland of the story is a place where the old ways are still very much alive, but they are being challenged by a new, more individualistic, and often more calculating world. This isn't just a political or social change, it's a cultural one. The way people relate to the land, to their neighbors, and to the divine is shifting. This leads us to the theme of the mask of identity. Walter Scott is fascinated by how people present themselves to the world versus who they actually are. We see this clearly in Captain Cleveland. He is a master of the social mask, using a persona of ferocity to command respect and a persona of charm to manipulate social structures. Even the supernatural elements reflect this. Norna's transformation from Ulla Troil into an elemental spirit is a literal transformation of identity, a movement from the human to the eternal, driven by a past that she cannot outrun. There is also a profound exploration of the tension between rationalism and the supernatural. To the settlers and the more modern characters, the world is something to be understood through logic and social order. But to the people of Zetland, the world is alive with spirits and prophecies. The supernatural elements in the book aren't just metaphors for psychological states, they are presented as an integral part of the reality of the islands. The story asks us to consider whether there are truths about the human experience that lie beyond the reach of logic. Finally, the book examines the fragility of reputation and social standing. In a tight-knit, isolated community like Zetland, your reputation is everything. It is the currency with which you interact with the world. But as Cleveland demonstrates, that currency can be manipulated. A man can craft a reputation that is entirely artificial, and a single act or a single word can destroy a lifetime of standing. The Pirate is a complex, layered work. It's a story of romance and adventure, yes, but it's also a meditation on the ways in which history and identity are constructed. It's a study of how individuals try to assert their will against the overwhelming forces of tradition, nature, and fate. As the waves of the North Sea crash against the shores of Zetland, Scott reminds us that while the tides may change, the fundamental struggles of the human heart, the struggle for identity, for love, and for a sense of place in the world, remain constant.